What does, in your view, what does a good agent do? Because you mentioned to me in the conversation we were having before this interview that you're not a literary critic. So what is your role with the writer? I mean, I know we all know that agents sell. They approach and they sell. They get the deals.
Yeah, it is. I think it's quite difficult. I mean, we had a long conversation in Jaipur about, and I was given quite a hard time by some client of mine about how badly read I was. Before the 20th century, which is true. What was my view of Middlemarch? Not so good on that, which is my favourite Jane Austen novel. Not so good at that. So it went on. And I said that my job is not, I'm not a critic. I'm very instinctual. I didn't even do an English degree. I mean, I was a student activist in the 60s.
Right.
I mean, so in a way, I'm very instinctual about what I like. I don't make it. And what a literary agent does, okay, what do? I find things, I champion them, I advise people. I mean, in all kinds of areas, about books and elsewhere. So my relationship with people is quite intimate. I'm good at keeping secrets. But beyond that, because I know publishing, I know, or I think I know, who would be the right person to publish a book. Right. So I think you've got not just enough to be involved with the writers. You've got to know about the business. You've got to know about money. You've got to have a feeling about what things are worth. Because money is important to writers.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you value manuscript? I mean, how do you put a number on it?
That's a very
Can you
good
talk
question.
about that?
Sure. Publishers, I know what publishers will pay money for. So that's the first thing. And there's a certain kind of packaging you need to do to make publishers want books that are safe. And funny enough, they'll pay more and more money for books that they think are safe.
Right.
Even though, of course, a sequel, they think the sequels are safe.
Right.
If the first book is successful, they think the second book is. I mean, it's partly to do with packaging up. The slight problem is about when you've got a brand new book. On one level, a brand new book is good because there is no track record. So you have to find a way of presenting it. But of course, there's some publishers who pay a lot of money and other publishers who don't. So if you're going to sell a book to Faber, I know they're not going to pay me vast sum of money. They don't have a vast sum of money, and they shouldn't pay me vast sums of money.
Right.
But if I sell a book to, another publisher, let's put it that way, a big American corporate, say a corporate publisher, they have loads of money. They have no problems. I mean, so in a way, that's an issue of trying to come to what is worth. And some books I know I could get unlimited sums of money for. Oddly, though that would sound, but sometimes you don't want that. And you have a conversation with someone about money. I'm not right. I don't think I'm really answering your question. I'm trying to think what it's kind of a process, really. And I sometimes say to people, this is what I want. And at times I've said to someone, I want £200,000 for this book. And I sent to 6 people, and 5 people turn it down. They all say no, they don't even want to publish it.
Right.
So actually, it's like a poker game. At this point, you said to someone, I want this much money. You have no cards. You can't say, someone else is offering me 150,000 quid.
Right.
You've got nothing.
No.
So you just have to stick to your guns.
Yeah.
And you absolutely have to say, you cannot say, if they say, we'll give you £25,000, say. You can't say, I'll take it. You say, no. You've absolutely got to say what you mean. So a great deal, no bluffing. That's the deal or not. So you've got to be very, very strong about, if you ask for something, never back down. And if you get a reputation for never backing down, they know you're going to walk for this deal. And that gives you kind of confidence when you deal with it. So you need this skill about bargaining, being tough, and that's important because you're doing it on behalf of someone else. I probably wouldn't do it on behalf of myself, but for other people, writers need money. That seems to be money. And I've been in these corporations, and I've seen. I remember telling a story. I mean, I've seen the cars in the garage. These are big cars. They're Mercedes, and they paid vast sums of money to these people. So actually, there's a bit of Robin Hood about all this that tries to nick some of the dosh to give it to the people who write the books.
Right.
And they're entitled to it. So
sure.
I think that's in a way that's also quite fun. You've got to have a kind of gambling instinct,
right?
I think, as well. And that's also And then you've got to know about the business, you've got to know about contracts and all that stuff, and credibility. But I think you've got to be a risk taker, I think, on behalf of your clients.
Right.
But they take risks in what they write.
Yeah.
And so one takes risks for them. I mean, it doesn't always work out, of course not. But confidence, again, when you go through, is very important. You know, I'm not doing this. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to do it. You know, people need help because it's mysterious. And so anyway, people have conviction. I always think it's quite powerful. When you even, just on a common sense level, when you meet people,
Right.
and they're quite, I mean, they can be bores, of course. And so it's kind of finding the right balance between not being kind of irritatingly knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And also you share things with people. I've done business with these people for many years. So there's a very small group of people I do business with. So again, that's a factor here. Mm-hmm. So they know what I press for, and we know how to do things.
I see. Yeah, I was actually, it kind of makes sense because what you're saying to me, because we talked about David Davidar, and he made the recommendation to me that if you find an agent, you know, I think you should find an agent, but find a British agent rather than a Canadian one.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, because they're more likely to be connected with publishers who have placed and published international fiction than a Canadian agent.
That's true. I mean, I think there's some very good Canadian agents.
Yeah.
But that's good advice. I think it's quite difficult finding an agent. Actually, I always encourage people to see as many agents as they can. When they go, I think I encourage them to go to the office. I guess to see where someone works and how they work. I think it's important. Mm-hmm. I think the relationship with someone is really important because it's about trust. I think that's important. So I think there are quite a lot of factors. I always think it's very important for writers to choose agents rather than the other way around. Right. Because I think the power should be with the writer, not with the agent. I mean, the power is with the agent, not so much because we're powerful. Well, relatively so, reasonably powerful. But so I really think that's a better way to do it. But it's a very difficult process, I think, choosing an agent sometimes, So, but I had wonderful stories. I remember saying to a guy, you've got to go and see lots of people. You're an amazing writer. And he came back about a month later and said, look, I've been to see everyone, and no one wants me. Sure. He said, will you help me? I said, sure, that's fine. I mean, I believe in what he does. He's amazing. It's worked out fine. So agents, again, have agendas. So trying to work out what their agenda is. I think what they like doing, what they don't like doing, what kind of stories they do, who they represent, just all that's part. So in a way, I was very struck in Joe Port. We had quite a lot of clients, writers there, and there was a kind of sensibility which I hadn't really noticed before, which I liked. I mean, there's generosity to other writers, I think, kindness, and also talking about other writers on stage and not just pushing their own stuff, which I can find a bit tiresome. So I learned quite a lot watching all together, thinking, what was there something in common with these guys or not? And I think there might have been, actually.
Well, in the Indian writers whom I have interviewed, I generally ask about process because I'm interested. Nobody has, I guess no two processes are exactly alike, but I get the feeling, or it's been my observation, I should say, that the vast majority of Indian writers come up with an idea and then it kind of incubates for a while. And so the process of actually taking that idea and, putting words on a page and having a manuscript, it's a very long process.
Yes, absolutely. It should be. Yeah. I mean, I think good books are difficult, take a lot of time. I mean, Arundhati has never written a novel since Got Small Things, and actually I think that's rather good of her. I mean, it's not. I mean, there's so much in that book of her life and her feelings about the world, which makes it a good book. And therefore she hasn't raced on to do another one. I mean, hopefully she will do another one. And it will be about things she's learnt.
Since then.
Well, I mean, that sounds a bit didactic, but it will be as rich, again, as the first one was. And I think sometimes that's very important for writers. I think often people write far too many books.
Right.
Partly because, agents love, love those, people keep writing lots of successful works, and so do publishers. But actually, in the end, it can be a dispiriting business, I think. So generally, take your time, make it as good as possible. It's much the best way of doing things.